Is Jessica Wakefield a school bully? I think the answer is yes. Let's talk about Sweet Valley High number 4, Power Play. Hi everyone, I'm Rosie Blythe. I'm the author of the Princess Guide to Life book series, and on this channel we talk about all kinds of stuff, but today we are continuing my little series on Sweet Valley High, the books that shaped me. So, book 4, Power Play. This is a strange book. It feels like the odd one out to me. Like, even the cover is slightly strange. It doesn't really look like the other covers. Obviously the twins look like themselves, but there isn't another cover like this where they're looking at each other, so it's just a little bit different.
And it has only just occurred to me all these decades later that the reason they designed it like this was because they didn't want to have an overweight girl on the cover.
I was trying to put my finger on why this book feels a little bit strange and off-kilter to me. I think one major thing is that the Wakefield's family isn't really mentioned. So that's strange. It's almost like this little twilight world where there are no parents. And even like the first page, normally the books open with a line of dialogue, and it's, you know, it's normally like Jessica being like, "Oh, Lizzie, my life is in ruins," or whatever. And so you're instantly, it's quite interesting. You're like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Whereas this doesn't start with a line of dialogue. It begins with the line, "Elizabeth Wakefield didn't know how messy things would get with Robin Wilson and the sorority pledging until she was in too deep to back out." And then it just goes on with prose. Which just feels different. Did anyone else feel like this book felt like a strange tone to them, or is it just me? Anyway, let's dive into the book. So this plotline is basically, there is a fat girl at Sweet Valley High. So obviously she's ostracised because that's how it is in Sweet Valley. Robin Wilson, she is not a popular girl, but she really, really wants to be in Pi Beta Alpha, which is the sorority that Jessica is president of. Because I think, like many people who aren't happy, Robin thinks, if only I could just do this thing, then I'll be happy. And of course it wouldn't necessarily be true. Robin thinks that she's friends with Jessica, and obviously Jess just using her for what she can do for her, because that's how Jessica operates. And of course, as usual, Elizabeth is just there to pick up the pieces. So there's an interesting bit here where Robin mentions that she's Jessica's best friend, and Elizabeth is completely amazed at how blind she was to Jessica's true character, which is pretty rich considering how blind Elizabeth generally is to Jessica's true character. She won't really believe the worst of her even when it's staring her in the face. So we have a little subplot that Lila Fowler, very rich girl, daughter of George Fowler, who's this like very successful businessman, she is friends with Jessica. They're not especially close friends, I don't think, in this book. But she's lavishing gifts on Jessica, and Elizabeth is like, this is like, there's something weird about this. Why is she giving so much stuff to Jessica? So that's our little subplot. We'll find out as we go along. So poor Todd Wilkins, he's dating Elizabeth. He just never gets a happy, carefree girl to date. She's always worrying about Jessica. She's always like, "Oh, there's something going on. Oh no, I can't tell you." And he always knows it's Jessica. He's like, "Oh yeah, what's she done now?" Elizabeth won't accept that like Jessica could do anything wrong. So Jessica, Cara and Lila, the 3 bitches of the school, are in charge of setting Robin her pledge thing. I don't know why the school kind of doesn't really get involved if it's a school thing, but they don't. And yeah, so they make Robin run around the track in front of everyone, which is kind of humiliating for her. And then the next task they set, she has to go to the beach wearing a bikini and play volleyball. This poor girl, she does not want to expose her body. It's really nasty stuff. But she does it. She says like, "Oh, I've got a 2-piece that's too small, so it's kind of like a bikini." I mean, aren't all 2-pieces bikinis? Is it like it's only bikini when it's like little scraps of material? I don't know. While she's playing volleyball, Bruce Patman is jeering at her. He's so disgusting. He says, "Way to go, Wilson. Anyone into blubber would call your moves awesome." But Elizabeth is there with Todd and Enid and her boyfriend George, so they're kind of like moral support for Robin. But then she's flawed with the last request. She has to get Bruce Patman to take her to the disco marathon on the Saturday night, because there's always another dance in Sweet Valley. And we know Bruce Patman only goes out with girls on the A-list. He and Jessica have only just broken up, actually. So Bruce and Jessica seem like they're on okay terms, considering that in the last book he cheated on her and she threw pizza in his face. Worth a read, I'm telling you. I don't really know why Bruce Patman is always hanging out with the juniors. Like, he's never with the senior class. He's just like, he's always like an honorary member of the junior class. Maybe he's just like got Arrested Development or something. But you'd think he'd be hanging out with his own cool gang from the senior class. Anyway, so we all like the outfit descriptions, don't we? We've got a mention of Jessica wearing an ice blue string bikini. Sounds like it would be great with her skin and her hair colour. Elizabeth, with no particular reasoning behind this, says, yeah, you should ask Bruce. He will say yes to you. This is before she's spoken to him or anything, so it's just a very weird move from Elizabeth. But anyway, she goes and basically says to Bruce, if you will go with Robin to the disco marathon, then I'll write stories about you in the school newspaper and you'll get the fame and fortune that you crave. So he agrees. It's weird that Bruce agrees to this because he's friends with John Pfeiffer, who writes the sports department in the paper. So you'd think that John would just write pieces about him. But apparently an article written by Elizabeth is worth its weight in gold. So Elizabeth doesn't tell Jessica that she's like gonna do this deal with Bruce. But she does bet her 2 weeks laundry that Robin will be able to do all her pledge chores. So she's taking advantage of her friend there, but I think Jessica deserves the 2 weeks laundry anyway. So Robin succeeds. She asks Bruce to the dance and he takes her. But when they get there, Bruce says, well, I brought you to the dance, Tubby. And he says, anybody want to steer the Queen Mary around the floor tonight? She's all yours. And then he just leaves her. He's so hideous. So obviously Robin is again humiliated beyond measure. So Elizabeth tries to cheer Robin up. She goes into the bathroom with her and she says to Robin, you've got a pretty face, a very pretty face. And then it's revealed that she was just saying this as a compliment, but then she's like, oh, actually, no, she is quite good looking. When they come out of the bathroom, Todd is like squaring up to Bruce because physical fights are a way to solve problems. In fact, Todd does this a lot, doesn't he? He punched Rick Andover in the first book, and this is like only a few books later. So Todd's got a little bit of an anger management issue, I think, that we're never going to address. So because Elizabeth's like, oh, I have to stop Todd, she grabs this random guy, Alan Walters. He takes pictures for the school newspaper and he's the tallest, the smartest and perhaps the shyest boy at Sweet Valley High. She's like, please run after Robin and stop her from leaving. I don't know what she's going to do, but I need to stop Todd. So random dude that we've just picked as, you know he's going to be the love interest for Robin. He goes out and he's like, oh, wait, Robin. She's really rude to him. He's like, the idea that you could help me is like the biggest joke ever. So she's like really unnecessarily unpleasant to Alan. I don't know if it was Francine Pascal or if it was her ghostwriters, but somebody involved in these books loves classic movies because they get mentioned a lot. I think this is the first mention that we get. So they start talking about Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. If you don't know who they are, classic movie stars from I think the 40s. I think Humphrey Bogart was a bit earlier, and like 40s and 50s, but like black and white, amazing film stars. You need to check them out if you don't know them. And honestly, I owe my love for those old movies partly to reading Sweet Valley High because they mentioned them such a lot. So thank you, Sweet Valley High writers, for introducing me to Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Anyway, Alan says, oh, let me walk you home. And Robin's like, ooh, he has nice eyes. So we can see where that relationship is going. And then we move on to the subplot where Elizabeth is like, there is definitely something weird about Lila giving Jessica all these things. She does go to this exclusive little boutique in the mall and she notices one of the scarves there is identical to the one that Jessica has. And the sales lady mentions quite pointedly, we've had a lot of things stolen lately. So Elizabeth starts thinking like, is Jessica shoplifting? What is going on right now? But instead of confronting Jessica and being open and honest about what has just transpired, instead she just says, don't wear that scarf that Lila gave you. It doesn't look good on you. Because she's so passive. Even with her own sister, she can't just be blunt and honest. Anyway, the sorority votes on Robin and she gets blackballed. And everyone is like, oh, but she's Jessica's friend, so who would go against Jessica? And of course, we know it was Jessica because she hates her for no reason other than she's fat. So she thinks like, oh, she doesn't fit in with my image. I can't be seen with her unless she's doing favours for me, and then it's okay.
And every girl reading Sweet Valley High probably wasn't a perfect size 6. And I wonder what they thought when they realised Jessica would find them repulsive. It seems odd to potentially alienate your readers like this. I was slim as a teen, so to my shame, it didn't really occur to me, although I was under no illusions that Jessica would have probably found me impossibly nerdy and uncool, and I was okay with that.
So yeah, Jessica is not someone to look up to, shall we say. So anyway, Robin is heartbroken to not be let into this snobby sorority. And the only thing that Elizabeth can do that is within her power to do is she writes an article for the Sweet Valley High newspaper, the Oracle, denouncing snobbery, and it says that she does it in a way that is obvious she's talking about Pi Beta Alpha. I would love to see a sample of that writing because I can't quite picture what that would be. How does she make it clear that she's talking about them without mentioning Robin's name? I'm intrigued. So Jessica is furious with this article. She's like, oh, it's obvious it's about me. And Elizabeth's like, well, yeah, I'm glad that came across. And then she says, why did you encourage Robin and then knife her in the back, Jessica? And Jessica points out, you encouraged her. Because Jessica has figured out that Elizabeth must have had something to do with Bruce agreeing to go to the dance with Robin. Like, why did Elizabeth encourage her? Like, she was trying to help, but it might have helped her more if she just said, look, Jessica's a bitch. She will never let you join that sorority. So maybe you'd be better off doing something different because my sister is horrible. I actually think Jessica makes a fair point here that it's kind of partly Elizabeth's fault because she did encourage her as well and she gave her false hope that it was all going to work out. So Robin drops out of school for a little bit. She just doesn't come into school, which seems to happen in these books a lot. I did not know that that was an option, that if you didn't feel like going to school, you could just not do it. Like, I don't think that would have washed in my school. But then when she does come back, she's kind of like a zombie. She just like, she looks through people. She doesn't talk to anyone. So her old personality has gone. That like bubbly, effusive, like, oh, let me do things for you. That Robin has just disappeared. And she never comes back. So Robin does just have a complete personality transplant in this book. Robin turned to face her with a look that seemed to cut right through her. Elizabeth shivered. So it's almost like this spooky personality change that she's had. And she won't speak to Jessica, which is gratifying at least. And then she starts running around the track again, and she's not overeating anymore, and she starts to lose weight. So she says to Elizabeth, I'm not angry with you. You're the only one I would even think about talking to. Although she's not especially friendly to her. Then we come back to the subplot where Lila is going around boasting that her father loves spending time with her and it doesn't seem to quite ring true. And then Elizabeth sees Lila at the mall and she is shoplifting. And she's like, why on earth would she do that? She's the richest girl in Sweet Valley. And Elizabeth almost gets accused because she's hanging around and she just like walks away like, oh, it wasn't me. Next thing we know, Lila phones Elizabeth at home and says, Jessica has been arrested for shoplifting. So Elizabeth goes along and she's like, right, Lila, you're going to come with me because I know it's you. Elizabeth is like, I think I can clear this up for you, but you've got to let my sister go. She's totally innocent, I swear. And the sales clerk is just like, oh, okay, she can go, but you have to stay. Because that's how it works if you get arrested for shoplifting. You can just exchange one person for another, that's fine. So this is kind of what I talk about when I say this book has a strange tone, because you'd think the parents would get involved a little bit. I know Elizabeth would do everything she could to protect Jessica from anyone finding out, but for me it's just strange that the teenagers are able to just take control of this situation and not get any adults involved. So Elizabeth takes responsibility and Jessica just buggers off. She doesn't even ask why Liz is saying, Lila's going to stay with me. It just says, without even a quick look around, Jessica was gone, not in the least bit interested in anything but her own freedom. Like, her twin sister will do anything for her and she does not give a crap, does she? She's a disgrace, isn't she? So Elizabeth tells them that Lila has been doing this and Lila doesn't want her dad to know, but he has to because she's a repeat offender. And Elizabeth ends up going like to court with them as a support for Lila. But again, like, it's not mentioned, like she doesn't tell her parents where she's going or anything. There's no like conversation about it, and that's why this book just feels odd to me. It feels just slightly off. So Elizabeth, very sweetly actually, she just says to George Fowler, spend time with your daughter, and Lila gives her a hug. In these books they're quite against rich people. They all seem to neglect their children, so it's sort of implied that he probably won't spend much time with Lila, which is a bit sad. Back to Robin, Jessica points out that she's a space cadet. Have you seen her walking around like something out of a horror movie? And Elizabeth says, I've seen her, Jess, and a lot of other people are seeing her these days too. What do you mean? I mean, she's getting popular in a big way since she lost all that weight and did herself over. I saw Bruce Patman drooling over her the other day after school. So yeah, she's lost weight and suddenly everyone is considering her a human being. So that's problematic. Robin's gone through a complete transformation. The old tent dresses had slowly disappeared, replaced with flattering and stylish outfits. Why couldn't she have worn flattering and stylish outfits when she was overweight? Like, there's nothing to stop her. She didn't need, like, I guess maybe in the 80s there weren't as many, I don't know, plus size clothing designs. I don't know. So then she tries out for cheerleading. Robin went through the routine as if she'd done it 1,000 times before. and she's made co-captain with a completely astounded Jessica Wakefield, so that must have been satisfying. But there's more. So Robin and Elizabeth have a little bit of a chat. There's a slight friendliness, but she's not the same person that she used to be. She doesn't have this sort of puppyish wanting to please all the time, which is a good thing, but it's weird that she changes so completely just because she's lost weight. I don't think people actually change personality when their bodies change. I mean, maybe there are changes in attitude, but it just seems odd that she's a completely different person inside and out. So Robin says, at first I thought you must have set me up, but now I realise that you didn't. And she says that she knows it's Jessica, and Elizabeth is like, no, Jessica wouldn't do that. And I'm going to come back to that for the Elizabeth moment. Everybody at Sweet Valley High, even Elizabeth, gradually forgot there had ever been a fat and ugly Robin, but Robin would always remember. Now, we established that she had a very pretty face, so it just seems like fat and ugly, those words just go together, which is just, ugh. Like, you can tell these books were written in a different era, can't you? And Jessica says, beauty's only skin deep. Underneath, Robin Wilson is a deranged freak. Why she doesn't like any of us after all we did for her, I'll never know, but it's the mark of a sick person. So yeah, Jessica is just living in her own little world. So there's a tiny subplot about Elizabeth sending her articles to the local paper in the hope that they'll give her a job. She gets rejection. She slumped back in her chair and felt her eyes getting red. So she's almost crying because she's got one rejection. She's like, but Mr. Collins, he hasn't taken any of my articles. And then, of course, later on in the book, she gets an opportunity to write for the Sweet Valley News. So she always gets her own way. Like, she's never rejected for long, is she? It always goes her way in the end. So the next thing that's coming up at Sweet Valley is the chance to be Miss Sweet Valley High. And of course Jessica wants to be. And Jessica's wisdom on dating is, I think a girl can be friendly and nice to several boys. Elizabeth's like, the whole football team? And she's like, not the whole team. I haven't dated a single boy who isn't on the first string. Now this is important because there's a book later where Jessica is very angry that another girl is dating lots of boys and she calls her easy. So she's a little bit hypocritical. So Robin puts a sign up saying that Pi Beta Alpha have forbidden any girl who's not a member to go out for Miss Sweet Valley High. And she says, I accept their challenge, I ask for your vote. So she's lying. But everyone votes for her because they want to like show Pi Beta Alpha. So Robin wins Miss Sweet Valley High, which I don't think we ever see mentioned ever again. So it doesn't seem to have benefited her in any way, but it's a good little coup for her. And also she's supposed to get like a ride in a limo, but she says to Bruce, oh, would you drive me in your Porsche instead? But she has Alan as her date, so Bruce has to drive Robin and her date around, which is a really satisfying revenge on him, isn't it? In the last book, Robin had this crush on Winston Egbert. So now that she has like her pick of all the boys at school, she's not interested in him. That's just another little detail that's just like completely forgotten. Like you'd think she would have been like, oh yeah, I can get any boy now. So did she actually like him, or was she just like, oh, Winston's a nerd, so maybe I've got a chance with him rather than like one of the cool guys? Jessica being Jessica, when she comes over and Robin Wilson is just leaving, having spoken to Liz, she says, why was that fat wimp pouring at me and gushing all over the place? Jessica is horrible, isn't she? She's just like the worst. So the most Elizabeth line is so ridiculous, and I don't understand why she says this. So this is after Robin knows that Jessica is just a horrible person. Robin says, you're too much, Liz. You know that? You can't see rottenness in anybody. She's the one who blackballed me. Now, we know this is a fact, and this is Elizabeth's response. Jessica, no! Elizabeth couldn't bear for Robin to be so hurt, so disillusioned. She was your friend. Why is she saying that? Why? Like, even when she knows Jessica is kind of being evil, she will just defend her and be like, no, 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 she's not. What a Wally. So we have a great 80s reference. Jessica was wearing leotards and exercising with Jane Fonda via video cassette. Now, I think people nowadays, if you think of Jane Fonda, you might think like political activist, you might think of Monster-in-Law with Jennifer Lopez. Jane Fonda was I mean, she was always known for political activism, but she was like a starlet back in the day. She was in Barbarella. And then she had this whole other career with the Keep Fit videos. Much like stars now, people were always like diversifying their careers. But I feel like her Keep Fit career is probably what she's least known for now. So it's kind of funny to get that reference in an 80s book. So best Wakefield worship is when all the girls are trying to compete for Miss Sweet Valley High. Leading all the challenges was Jessica Wakefield, whose natural beauty, sparkling blue-green eyes, sun-streaked blonde hair and terrific figure stood out no matter what look she went for. So there we have it, book 4. We have a little teaser for book 5 where Jessica is interested in a college guy. So I'm sure that shenanigans will ensue. I hope that you'll join me for that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.